And welcome back to the conversation. I'm Nubrato. Conversation. We've had a busy summer. We're heading to the fall. And we had a chance to talk to a lot of different political candidates during the summertime and up to the primary. But primary is over, and now November 5th is the election. I'm here with Bob Sullivan, mayoral candidate, current city council at large president. First and foremost, thanks for coming on.
Nubi, thanks. It was great we did this last time, and I really just want to thank you for having me on again.
You know, a lot of times, I was saying to a few other candidates, the debates are awesome, but sometimes you really can't get your point across because, between a 1 and a 2 minute rebuttal, it's tough to kind of get your whole point across and what you want to do in terms of a platform. So what we want to do is kind of give you the opportunity here.
Perfect.
So what I ask, everyone is basically right off the bat, who's Bob Sullivan? Tell us a little about yourself, and then tell us, what separates you from the other candidate.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Nubi, for having me on the show. So, Robert Sullivan, I was born and raised in Brockton. My dad was a teacher at Brockton High. My mom was a nurse in the city of Brockton, and I grew up in Ward 2 on Wellington Street near the Edgar Playground. And my wife and I actually met at Brockton High. And Maria's family was in Ward 1, the Louises on Revere Street. And we're raising 3 beautiful kids here in the city of Brockton. My oldest son, Tommy's 12. He goes to Trinity Catholic Academy. My daughter, Grace, is 9. She goes to Angelo School. And my son, Will, is 7. He goes to the Hancock School. So, Brockton is home. It's my home, and it's your home, and it's our home. And for 14 years, I've served as a councilor at large, serving the entire city of Brockton, and it's been an honor and a privilege. And I've done 14 budgets, Nubi, and I've worked with 4 different mayors, from Mayor Harrington to Belzotti to the late Mayor Bill Carpenter and now Mayor Rodriguez. And as I sit here today, I am the acting mayor. Mayor Rodriguez is in Cape Verde, so it's a long campaign. It's been a great campaign. It's always been positive, and I just believe right now when you're talking about the mayor's position, experience matters, and I have that, and I have a background, a law degree, and also a master's in business administration that I went nights to BC to get that. So it has served me well to be able to draft laws that benefit Brockton over the 14 years. And during the budget, I have a unique skill set of finance, and I've been able to kind of vet out the budget and do some cost containment measures, and have really benefited the residents and business owners in the city of Champions. So
you and Jimmy prevailed after the primary, and I could say both great people before anything.
Thank you.
I really could say that. But this is a race, and what separates you from Jimmy?
Well, first of all, I want to thank anybody that runs for office. It's a daunting task, and Jimmy and I have been professional and courteous at all times, and that's how you run a campaign, in my humble opinion. So I think the difference is, quite honestly, it's experience. And when you're talking about the mayor, the person that gets sworn in on January 6th, it's a very, very difficult position to learn. And after 14 years of doing budgeting and being, acting mayor as the council president for 4 different times, experience matters. And again, it's a serious position. There's really no learning curve, and you have to be able to do fiscal financial responsibility, and also work in collaboration. And again, I've been a city councilor for 14 years, working with my other city council colleagues, working with state representatives, the representatives and the state senator, to make a benefit to the residents of Brockton, Nubi. So I really think experience matters, and I'm hearing that when I'm knocking on doors, and people, first of all, are engaged. That's exciting about Brockton's future, and that's my slogan: leadership for Brockton's future. And I believe I have the skill sets, the background, and the dedication and proven experience to move Brockton inclusively, collectively, collaboratively, to move it forward to benefit everybody that lives in the city of Brockton.
Talk about being inclusive. A few weeks ago, there was actually a few incidents over at Brockton High, and then a few incidents with the police and so forth. Community policing. What would you do to improve community policing? And they talk about a lot of things going on at the high school in terms of the last few weeks, about some incidents, about getting more programs in terms of that into the school system.
Well, first of all, those situations that are occurring are very troubling. Not just as an elected official, but as a dad of 3 children. And when I grew up in Brockton, and I went to Brockton High and got out in 1988, we didn't have the social media, and that creates some issues among kids in Brockton. It does, without question. But I think we need to have a frank, honest communication. And if I am elected mayor on November 5th and sworn in January 6th, I've said this before: we need to hire more police, the brave men and women, to make our streets safe. That's what we deserve. But also we need to have better communication, open dialogue, making sure the community policing means that. It's the community working together. And I also think Mike Thomas, the interim superintendent, is doing an excellent job. He had to sit down right after that incident, and that was the right thing to do. Without the communication, without the roundtable discussions, it's gonna fester, and we have to nip it, find out what the root cause is, and make sure as a community we come together, because it's really, that's why I'm running. It's the young right now, the youth. That's why you do what you do, Newbie, to make a difference, and that's the future of Brockton. So it's very concerning when any incident occurs among students and fighting, and when the police get involved, but ultimately we have to come together as a community to figure out how do we correct that issue. It could be, working with houses of worship and clergy, the pastors, the reverends, the priests, the rabbis, and also the Brockton PD, and also the schools. And that's what it means to be a public servant, in my humble opinion, Newbie.
How do you balance, hiring, you talk about diversity, how do you balance hiring a diverse staff, but also make sure that you have the most qualified? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, I have to win, and if I do prevail, I'm going to take it serious, and I think my business background is going to be extremely helpful. You need to surround yourself with very skilled, knowledgeable people, men and women, Brockton residents. We have that here. The number one asset in Brockton are the people, without question. And you need to make sure that City Hall, the schools, DPW, police, fire, really reflect the community as a whole. And you know this, Newbie. Brockton has always been a community of immigrants. When my grandparents came from Ireland to work in the shoe factories, and my wife's great-grandparents came from Italy, that was the wave. And it's just a different wave of immigrants now. The beautiful Haitian community, Cape Verde community, the people from Angola. And that's what makes Brockton so unique. I call it a quilt. And there's different pieces of fabric that make up the quilt known as Brockton. And, again, I can only think about the election November 5th. It's 3 weeks from now. And if I am fortunate enough to prevail, then we have the roundtable discussions to figure out personnel matters and really roll up the sleeves and get the job done. I'm up for the challenge. I can't wait.
Awesome. Definitely a lot of energy in this campaign. Just in general, a lot of great, large candidates running, school committees, so on and so forth, and mayor candidates. What Big Bang kind of was in the news last few weeks in terms of a lot of construction going on in Brockton, which is awesome. But the controversy was, maybe giving tax breaks to certain companies, certain people who are investing here. How do you balance that in terms of getting having the homeowner, and having these new businesses come in? You want them to come in, but in terms of giving them tax breaks, how do you balance that?
Well, I think first of all, you need to make sure what tools are in the toolbox of business development. And again, from my experience and my business background, I've been able to do that over the 14 years as a city councilor at large, serving 7 wards, 28 precincts. But what I've always done during the tax factor setting, and it's coming up again around Thanksgiving, is you always have to be cognizant of the fact, and I'm a taxpayer myself, my wife and I own a home in Brockton, we don't come from a wealthy community, we don't. We have dedicated, hardworking individuals working 2 or 3 jobs, and we need to remember that as city councilors, as school committee members, and more importantly as the mayor. But I do think that the TIE program that you're talking about, it was tax incremental exemptions. It was negotiated by the former late mayor, and as a city council we questioned it, but ultimately we need to make sure that the businesses do come to Brockton. There's about $190 million in the queue for 2019 downtown investment, which is great. It's going to help our tax base and help all the residents, but also make sure that the businesses that are here stay here. And make sure that they feel that they have a voice at City Hall. And 43D was expediting permitting. My former colleague from Ward 7, Chris McMillan, brought it forward after I bought smart growth zoning. And I think that those are the different tools, Newbie. And if you look at some of the investments, we have historic tax credits that can be used in the city of Brockton. We have a gateway community. Brockton is a great place to live and work, and we need to make sure that. I mean, the commuter rail, we can get into Boston in 35 minutes to South Station. So I'm always cognizant of the taxpayers. Those are the people that I serve, the constituents and the residents. But we also need to make sure that it's not just downtown that's getting invested, it's all the 4 corners, north, south, east, west. And if you look at Kmart Plaza right now, we need to put a strong effort there in making sure that, the people that live down there, first of all, they haven't had a supermarket in almost 10 years. It's crazy. So,
that was actually my first job at Shaw's.
At Shaw's down there.
Yeah,
And,
back in the way back.
Back in the day. But let me just tell you a quick story about that. When Shaw's left, The former police chief, who was then the Ward 4 council, Paul Stadinsky, and I, as the council at large, wanted to meet with the Shaw's people to figure out what the heck's going on. And they wouldn't meet us in Brockton. We had to meet them at Town Hall in West Bridgewater. And to my amazement, what they told us is it was a business decision. They could really care about the residents. And they would rather have it vacant and pay a lease so that competition doesn't go there. So from a business perspective, that was their idea. From a practical humanitarian standpoint, that's crazy.
Right.
So, I'm running for mayor to do it for the right reasons. I coach, as you know. I'm a mentor to youth. I'm not a great coach, but I coach soccer, basketball, and baseball. The last 2 years, I've taken the basketball team to the championship. We've lost.
There you go.
We've lost, though. There's always this year. But, it's doing it for the right reasons at all time. And again, I'm running to be the next mayor so that Brockton can move forward, and it needs to. And the days of, hey, listen, I'm going to take care of this person because he's a friend or a neighbor, those days are gone. The barriers, they have to be broken. Brockton is here, and it needs to go up, not down. So, again, I'm asking people to consider me on November 5th. My website is electrobertsullivan.com, and, the preliminary is over. I just want to thank everybody that went to the polls and the 5,000 people that voted for me. But that election is over, and now we move forward, and Jimmy and I are really being positive. We're going to have some debates coming up, and I believe, in my humble opinion, experience matters.
First 100 days in office, what are some main priorities you have? I know you mentioned you want to do a community meeting. What are some other priorities that first 100 days?
Well, I think, the community meeting is where we have the meeting of the minds, where we sit down and we talk to everybody that wants to show up to share ideas, suggestions, and criticisms. And then we vet them out. When I'm knocking on doors right now, a senior citizen has a priority different than a mom and dad that has young kids in the Brockton Public Schools. That's just fact. So we need to figure out, number one, we need a clean community. We need to make sure that the codes that are on the books are being enforced for everybody, not looking a blind eye. It is what it is, and that's my lawyer training. And I've drafted ordinance in Newby that have helped seniors and veterans. They volunteer time, they get a price reduction in real estate. It's the right thing to do. So, I think 100 days we need to figure out, number one, how do we make it a safe community? How do we make it a clean community? How do we keep that train moving down the track for investment? Lieutenant Governor Polito was just here the other day for 75 Commercial Street, and I met with her, and I chatted with her. Like, listen, we need to keep that relationship going and making sure that we enhance it, making sure that the state reps and the state senator are working to get that long overdue money for our public school systems, because ultimately it's the kids that are being cheated. It's in the queue right now, but it's long overdue. We don't get a reimbursement for transportation. Brockton gets cheated. We don't get our lottery funds, at least the equivalent of what we should be getting. Chapter 70, Chapter 90. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. The roads in Brockton are despicable. You kind of really have to zigzag around potholes. Those days have to go. So if I am elected, one of my first things is to go up to the State House, meet with the Speaker, meet with the Senate President, meet with the Governor, meet with the Lieutenant Governor, and say, hey, listen, this is who I am. I'm a Brockton guy, born and raised, and let's talk is cheap. Let's see production right now.
Absolutely. You mentioned about businesses, and even over the south side of Brockton. What businesses would you like to see come to the city? There are talks about casino. It looks like that's not a possibility. Different businesses. What do you want to see in Brockton?
Well, I think right now, so the old days of the shoe factories where my grandparents worked, those days are gone, right? But what do you think the number one thing in Brockton right now is? Well, we have 3 hospitals, right? We have the VA hospital, we have Good Sam, which I chair the board over there. I volunteer for 10 years to sit on the board. My wife's a physician assistant. Medical is extremely important for Brockton. And we have Signature, the old Brockton Hospital. But we also have neighborhood health centers. Yep. So, healthcare is at the forefront. Shields MRI used to have the corporate office here in Brockton before they moved to Quincy. So, I would meet with Rob May, our city planner. We just, the city council, and again, I'm one of 11, we just put forward, Mayor Rodriguez put forward another extension, reappointment, 5 years for the city planner. He's got a great relationship in Boston. I support that wholeheartedly. And I just think that we need to figure out what are the businesses. I know people think marijuana is going to be the cure-all. I disagree with that. I know it's coming here. I worked as the ordinance chair to make sure that we dotted the I's, crossed the T's, make sure that it's going to be not the wild west, and that we will get some financial revenues. But I just think we need to figure out what businesses want to come here. And one thing could be literally just having a seminar event where businesses are coming here. There's going to be one at the Chamber of Commerce is having one at Thorny Lee in Brockton on Torrey Street next week, where real estate investors are coming to Brockton, and that's what you need to do. Bring them here, show them how beautiful Brockton is. Number one, what are the assets? What are the benefits? And people will say, well, it's a crime-ridden. First of all, we're a city. number one. So are you going to always avoid crime? No, you're not. But I think there's a correlation, you know this, Newbie, between drugs and criminal activity. So again, we need to get to the root cause. We need to educate, the young kids and work together. So again, I'm running to serve everybody in Brockton. And I really think my track record speaks for itself, and I really welcome the debates that are going to be coming up, and ultimately we only have 3 weeks to decide the future of Brockton.
One more question, then I'm going to have you wrap up. So you've been city council for 14 years, right?
Yes.
How is that experience as a city council for 14 years in president? How's that going to be a smooth transition to if you do win on November 5th? How's that going to help you out?
Well, again, the city council is the legislative body, right? So for 14 years, I've worked on the other side of the aisle, and the mayor is the administrator of a CEO of a business known as Brockton, $440 million, almost $500 million. And again, I've done 14 budgets. So I think what the transition would be, number one, on day one, I would understand how to do financial budgeting. I've worked with department heads. I have that relationship. I have the synergy with the other elected officials, and I think that that's invaluable because, again, the days of saying the city council's here and the mayor's here are gone. It has to be a collaborative approach. We're all elected by the voters in Brockton. We all serve 2 years terms, and ultimately the goal is to achieve the same success, which is to make Brockton a better place to live and work. So, I just welcome the challenges that may forthcome if I achieve success on November 5th, but I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm working hard. I have so many great volunteers and supporters, and until 8 o'clock when the polls close on November 5th, I'm going to be working as hard as I can, Newbie, and ultimately the voters will decide who's going to win and who's not going to win. But again, I'm just going to get the message out and say, hey, listen, we can do better in Brockton, and I'm going to be a cheerleader like I always have been for Brockton, and Brockton is really going to be a great place to live and work if we move forward in a positive light.
So again, tell them what time, when's the election, and why should they vote for Bob Sullivan?
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on. So it's Tuesday, November 5th. Polls open in Brockton 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. And again, my name is Robert Sullivan, and I'm going to be number 2 on the ballot, but I'm always first for Brockton, and I always have been, because ultimately I didn't leave Brockton. After I graduated from Boston College, I came back home because it's home. My mom and dad still live here. My in-laws live here. Maria, my wife, and I are raising the kids here. And I just feel that if you look at my experiences and what I've done over the 14 years, not everyone can agree on things, and that's the differences of political service, right? You try to do the right things. You can't always make everybody happy. But what I can say is I've always worked in the best interest of Brockton, be it drafting ordinances with my legal background or making sure we do cost containment measures, such as buying the streetlights for $42,000, saving over $1 million of reoccurring cost savings. These are things that I've done. Those are my accomplishments. But why I'm running for mayor is to take it to the next level, to be an administrator of a business known as Brockton, to make sure that people on the north side, east side, west side, south side feel like their voice at City Hall is being heard. And I, again, am asking people to vote for me, Robert Sullivan, next mayor of the city of Brockton on November 5th.
That's it right there. So I want to thank everyone for listening to the conversation. We'll have more candidates soon. And the energy in this election, I can't remember the last couple of years. The energy is really, it's exciting.
It is.
It's exciting. So it's going to be definitely a lot of fun. So wish you the best luck November 5th, and hopefully you'll be on again.
Thanks, Nobi. I appreciate it.